What's going on, everyone? So we've seen most of the Lakers get workouts in, right? You've seen Anthony Davis, LeBron James shared their images and stuff. You've seen, even scrimmages and runs, Jackson Hayes, and you had Cam Reddish, and you had Shafino, and you've seen pretty much everybody this offseason getting workouts in to some capacity. And that's always good, right? You want to see guys putting in the hours, putting in the time, putting in the commitment. But the two guys you've seen more than pretty much anybody have been Rui Hachimura and Jared Vanderbilt. Cam Reddish is right there too, right? You've seen a lot of Cam Reddish putting in the work and the hours, which I love, and I dedicated an entire video to that because that is a big question with Cam Reddish. That's something that has been talked about heavily, his work ethic. And it's nice to see him really grinding and in the lab working on his game. But again, Rui Hachimura, this dude, from the moment the offseason started, he was in the lab. Him and Jared Vanderbilt are flying to Japan, working in Japan, working with Phil Handy. He was working all year for the Lakers, right? Because you got to remember, he fell out of the rotation. And he even talked about how that kind of lit a fire under him. And he was working with Phil Handy. You saw Phil Handy kind of fix his hitch in his shot. And he, boom, explodes onto the scene and was great for us in the playoffs. And he was great last year for the Lakers. He could have been better in the regular season, but the playoffs, he was absolutely ridiculous. And we need his playoff success to translate to regular season success, right? There's a lot of talks about the Lakers potentially starting him, which makes sense. They gave him all this money. Makes sense you'd want to start him. He slimmed down, so hopefully that'll help him guarding threes more, because that's kind of been the issue, is he's great against the bigger guys, right? Like, he's great at guard. Like, we saw what he was able to do against Karl Anthony Towns. We saw what he was able to do to Jokic even, to some degree. Aaron Gordon, guys like that. He's good because of his lower center of gravity, his ability and his sturdiness, his bulkiness to just be strong, kind of plant himself, and he's just unmovable at that point. That's great in that regard. But can he step out and guard some of these perimeter guys? He's struggled against some of the twitchier perimeter guys. And him slimming down, hopefully, that'll allow him to help with his lateral movement and just be able to stay in front of guys better. And my concern, though, with that is he loses some of that strength and some of the just, I guess, advantages that he's had, right? But it also could help him and blossom him more into maybe a better scorer, right? Because he's going to be able to kind of be a little more shifty. At least that's the idea. And you see him working on his shot, working on his game, doing drills. I loved what we saw from him in Japan, because he was working on his footwork. He was working on just, again, his lateral movement. He was working on some of the things that we need to see him improve. And his abilities are not the problem, right? I mean, the sky's the limit for this guy. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point this guy's a 25-point-a-game scorer. The guy is super efficient, right? He needs to work on his three-point shot a little more. But if he can translate the playoff success to the regular season, then he'll be fine, right? He had a season with Washington where he shot 45% on 3 attempts per game for Washington, right? Like, he's had some success. We've seen him have some, but he hasn't been able to really translate that consistently. He was 30% for the Lakers this past year. But if you look at his playoff stats, dude, and it's not just, granted, he hasn't been in a world of playoffs. He only played 5 playoff games for the Washington Wizards, 16 for the Lakers. But in that time, for the Wizards, he shot 61.7% from the field. For the Lakers, he shot 55.7%. From three-point range for Washington, he shot 60% from 3 on 3 attempts per game. For the Lakers, he shot 48.7% on 2.5 attempts per game. Shot 62.5% for the Wizards on 2% shots and 58.7% from 2 in the Lakers last season, right? Gave you 14.8 points for Washington, 12.2 points for the Lakers, right? This is a guy that's basically a 13-point-a-game guy for his career. And his 2-point range is money, right? He's a 53% career 2-point shooter. He shot 55.6% on just under 6 attempts per game for the Lakers last year. His midi is absolute butter, right? His ability to score the basketball, even that first step, and his ability to finish strong through contact because of his size and because of his strength is massive. But it's that 3-point shooting. He really needs to work and improve on that 3-point shot. And he's been really in the lab working on it. But it also comes down to opportunity, right? I'm not saying you have to run your offense through him entirely, but I'd like to see the Lakers kind of run some more sets and schemes for him. Instead of him just standing in the corner and be a spot-up 3-point shooter. Like, there's no point. That's not his game. Run some pick and pops. Put him on the block and let him go to work. Right? Put the ball in his hands and let him make some decisions on the offensive end. Let him just go get a bucket. Like, the dude is an absolute bucket if given the opportunity. And I want to see him get that opportunity this year for the Lakers. And I love seeing him just constantly be in the lab. Constantly putting in the work, putting in the hours, putting in the effort. Because he is really just, he's been phenomenal. He really has. But much like Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, he's been doing the same thing. Dude, this guy, as soon as the Lakers picked up his option, that same day, he was literally in the Lakers gym working on his corner 3. We talked about it. Working and grinding this entire offseason. All he's been doing is working on his corner 3 because he knows, that's what he's going to have to do. He's going to have to knock down some corner 3s. There's no question about his defensive presence. Guy is the best on-ball defender in the entire league. The guy is ridiculous. All the numbers, all the metrics, all the statistics, everything backs it up. The guy is ridiculous. He is A1 on the defensive end. It's the offensive end. He is our worst, based on last year. We'll see how much he improved this year. But based on last year, he's our worst offensive player on the Lakers right now. And we have so much depth and talent that I don't think he's going to fall out of the rotation or anything like that. But the amount of playing time and opportunity that he gets, if he's a liability on the offensive end, then I just think he's going to be a spot player. I do. I think he's just going to be a guy that comes in and plays 10 minutes a game, right? He plays 5 minutes in the beginning, 5 minutes at the end, and his job is just to focus all of his energy and all of his efforts into defending the other player. But I love that Jared Vanderbilt signs his new contract. So Lakers got him locked up long-term, which I love, right? And immediately back in the gym again. Immediately working on his corner 3, working on his shot, working on his game. He was in Japan, and all we've seen him do is just work on that corner 3, and I hope it translates. I genuinely do. Because I hope this guy is so good this year that you can't keep him off the court. You have to keep him on the court. That's my hope, right? I hope, because he's your best defensive player, not named Anthony Davis, and if he can be anything as far as offense goes, then you're going to have to keep him on the court. He's going to be too valuable. And his ability to consistently work on his corner 3, I think, is going to translate well. And I have a lot of hope and a lot of belief for Jared Vanderbilt. This is a guy that he's young, is going to continue to improve and have upside. He's a guy I don't think is ever going to be like an elite offensive player or anything like that. I don't. I would love to see it. But realistically, I think if we're lucky, his cap will probably be like 15 a game, right? But I do think that that's fine. Because you're talking about one of, if not the best defensive players in the entire league. If he just gives you 10 points a game, that's all you need, right? Not everybody on the Lakers has to be a superstar. Not everyone on the Lakers, you need the Dennis Rodmans and the Scottie Pippens and the, and the Lamar Odoms and the Ron Artest. Like, you need the guys. And yeah, some of those guys were pretty good offensively, but you get my point. The hard-nosed, get after it, lock down defensive guys, do the dirty work. That's Jared Vanderbilt. That's who he is. That's what he is for this Lakers roster. He's the guy you need. He's the Trevor Ariza, the Ron Artest when he came to the Lakers, right? He's the guy that's defending the best player on the other team, making the big plays, doing the things that don't show up in the box score, right? If he can provide any level of offense. Couple things that I talked about going into this offseason that I wanted to see him do, and I'm glad that we're seeing him do all of those things. And it was the things that were very apparent. He needs to work on his three-point shooting, right? This is a guy last year from three, shot 30%. For Utah, he shot 33.3%. Can he just get to league average, which is 35? Now, he went from 14.3% with Minnesota and then jumped that and doubled that, or more than doubled that, to 33% for Utah and 30% for the Lakers, right? Not saying that he's going to double it again this year because that would put him at like 60% from three. I mean, if he does, great. But again, I don't need him to be Steph Curry out there from three-point range. I just need him to be good enough to where he doesn't become a liability. I want to see him work on his hands, right? Catching the ball, securing the basketball. How many times did, teams leave him open in the corner? They forget about him. He cuts, gets a beautiful pass, boom, and just either fumbles the bag or doesn't secure it and meets the bottom of the rim or just blows the layup or whatever, right? He's got to work on his hands. And I'd like to see him work on his handles a bit. He looked good in that scrimmage that we saw. Right? I showed some of that image, some of that footage of the scrimmage. Like, he looked great in this scrimmage we saw. And he has been working on his handles and working on his game in that regard. So, and the reason I want that is because I want him to be able to just go. We saw times where, he got a steal and was able to just comfortably dribble and go get a layup or grab a rebound and go coast to coast from time to time. But it never looked comfortable. Right? Like, I want to see him get the rebound and not have to wait for Reeves or D'Lo or LeBron or anything. He can just get the rebound and go. Push the pace, get up the court, make the defense make a decision, and then he can either dish it out or just finish over the top with his size and his length. That's what I want to see. But it's so great to see these two. Because these are our wings of the future. Jared Vanderbilt is very likely our long-term three. And Rui Hachimura, I believe, will be our LeBron replacement and be our long-term four. And so you have basically Reeves, Vando, Rui, and Anthony Davis is the core guys. We'll see what happens with Max Christie, right? Max Christie looks like he's boiling to take that next step. Lakers believe he has superstar potential. Hopefully that's our future, right? Hopefully it's, Reeves, Christie, Vando, Rui, and Anthony Davis, and we're winning championships with them. Like, I would love that. But I love seeing this type of work and the nonstop. It's not, I worked out for a week straight or something like that. No, it's literally been the entire offseason. And these guys are young and should improve and only get better. And anytime I can highlight that, I'm going to do that. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Love to hear it.